Hi everyone, I'm Max from AFM.AERO. Welcome to the Pilot Training Connect podcast, where we interview leaders from the pilot training industry to learn more about their organization and their views of the industry. Every week, we invite an industry leader to sit down with us to share their knowledge and views. This week, I have the great pleasure to be joined by Alexandre Alves, Chief Commercial Officer at Sevenair Group, a well-known Portugal aviation conglomerate, which includes Sevenair Academy, a popular and fast-growing flight school. Sevenair Academy has been rapidly growing coming out of the pandemic, with just this month, the flight school enrolling 30 new pilot training students from 5 different countries. Alexandre joins us today to share more about the group's activity and to make a special announcement. Welcome to the podcast, Alexandre.
Thank you, Max. It's always a pleasure. I'm very happy to be here and to share our visions and our ideas with you and the people that is listening to us.
Fantastic. So I think let's start off with you just giving kind of a brief introduction about Sevenair Group and also Sevenair Academy, so that everyone who's listening kind of gets an idea of the activities that you do specifically in regards to aviation training, but also in terms of the size that you are. So size of the training infrastructure, how many bases you're operating, number of students that you're training, those sorts of things.
Sure. So we are Portuguese privately owned group, and we've been around for 42 years. So the origins of the initial companies that are still part of the group were created in 1980. So we've been around for quite some time. And the group has grown through acquisitions through time and organically. Initially on the aerial works services, so like banner towing, scenic tours, and then it evolved and then started doing regional flights. And through these years, with ups and downs, we've managed to get I would say a good name in the market. And in the last 5 years, when we decided to restructure and expand internationally, that's where, and we rebranded as Sevenair Group. So until then, we had a large number of different companies. From then on, so from the last 5 years, we have seen the most amazing growth, as we say here. And even for us, it's sometimes difficult to keep up with our own pace. So our activity, we have 2 main activities. So the airlines, we have a regional airline that is specialized in public server operations, public service, or PSO contracts, that are subsidized contracts in Europe, and ACMI contracts, so wet lease. We have operated in 16 different countries. We are currently operating in Portugal and in São Tomé e Príncipe, which is an African country. And we are just waiting for to close the 2 other deals, also one in Africa and one in Portugal. So the airline is, of course, one of the biggest areas of the group. And the academy, so the aviation academy is the second one, and actually is the one that is growing the most in the last 5 years, the one that has expanded internationally with some operations, and that has been getting also some international customers. We have other areas, like we have a handling company, so we provide handling services on the airports where we operate. We have, of course, a maintenance division with EASA Part 145, Part CAMO, and Part 21 approvals that provide support not only for the airline and the academy, but also for third-party customers. And then we have some other smaller divisions like the avionics. So we have a large portion of the supply of avionics in the Portuguese and Spanish market. We are Garmin dealers, Evidyne, Trig, Midcontinent, Bendix King, and so on. And we've managed to be also in the maintenance area. We managed to get some interesting partnerships. We're a Tecnam and Piper service center. We are on the way to become a Textron service center. And our engine shop is a Rotec service center, which is one of the few that in Europe can do overall on certified engines. There aren't that much. So in regarding the academy, which is, I would say, the jewel of the crown, it has been in the last 5 years, as I was mentioning, the flagship company in the group. We expanded to Brazil 4 years ago with maintenance training. So we've been providing EASA approved maintenance training in Brazil. Just before the pandemic started, we started the same in Cape Verde, so in Africa. And in terms of maintenance training, for you to have an idea, we have around 540 students in-house at this stage, distributed by the Portuguese and Brazilian and Cape Verdean bases. In terms of pilot training, which is the other area that we do, our main base until today was Cascais Airport, which is a business aviation pilot training airport 20 kilometers from Lisbon, the Portuguese capital, where we have been since 1980. So it's been a long tradition here. So we have expanded in this airport. We have a building for the school, and we occupy 3 hangars. So we expanded with an additional hangar last year, 1.5 years ago. There's no more room to grow. And one of the good things that which is also the bad thing, is that we are in Lisbon airspace. And Lisbon has become a highly searched tourist destination. And because of that, the airspace has been too crowded. So and also the business aviation has been exploding here, as you know, and as in some other markets. And this is causing some constraints in our operation. And because of that, in January, we opened a secondary training base in the north of Portugal, in a city called Bragança, which we are very happy with that, because we can fly. It's a Gulf airspace, so non-controlled, very decent runway, weather is very interesting there. But more recently, and I said until today, Cascais was our main operating base, because today we announced officially the acquisition of L3 Harris assets in Portugal. And this will provide us an additional location in Portugal, a very large location, and a very large fleet of simulators and aircraft. So from now on, we'll be able to offer to our customers, either B2C or B2B customers, around 30,000 square meters of facilities in these 2 locations, 6 simulators, 52 aircraft, of each of them 40 are glass cockpit equipped. Most of the fleet is under 4 years old, so we're talking about very brand new aircraft from the factory. And we also have a hotel, a campus to house students that need to be accommodated. So we are able to offer 134 double rooms on I would say like a 4-star hotel quality accommodation. So this will be for us a game changer. We have stepped up a little bit, and we are very anxious to start working and to start offering this capability, and also the experience that we have. So I would say we can offer the quality that the market knows that we have, because if not, we wouldn't be around for so many years, combined with a high training capacity. And this will bring some challenges, but because of that, it's also very interesting.
And specific congratulations on this acquisition. I know it's really going to create some ripple effects in the industry. It's going to make a lot of people notice it. So I myself visited that facility 2 times back, I think in 2017. I would almost say the accommodation there is a borderline between 4-star and 5-star. I think it's most probably one of the nicest student accommodations that I've ever come across. I have a quick question in regards to once again the training infrastructure and the size of your flight training operations. So it's having 52 aircraft now already puts you in that league of like extremely large flight schools around the globe. Before this acquisition, can you give us an indication of how many pilots you had in training, or how many pilots you usually enroll per year? Because I know as well, and I think it's important for everyone to hear this as well, is that looking at your intakes now, the last intake that you've had just now in September, right, 30 students per batch, shows that not only is there a significant demand, but that Sevenair is also a very popular place for aspiring pilots.
Yeah. So today in-house, we have around 340 pilot students. So I mentioned the maintenance students, but which are a larger number, but we are not that far away with the pilot students. So yeah, we are very happy that we got 30 students in two classes, divided in two classes in September. But I can also tell you that we have already 30 students enrolled for November. So this is very interesting. It shows the market is coming back. People understand that all those news that after the pandemic people will not travel anymore. That is completely that idea passed completely, because people understood that everybody wants to travel for business, for pleasure, and the need for professional is there. I was traveling the last week, and we had huge constraints due to lack of professionals, pilots, not only pilots, but mostly pilots, but also ground staff, maintenance staff. So huge potential for aviation training organizations. Yeah. So far, we had a limited number of enrollments per year due to the constraints that I mentioned earlier. We were not able to train more than new 100 students per year. So we had a little bit more. So it's 108 students per year that we were enrolling so far. And that was the maximum that we decided, or we understood that our capability in terms of fleet instructors and mostly the airspace where we operate would allow. So if you imagine, and I'm talking about integrated courses, of course, and then if you do the math, if a course takes the average of 2 years, you should have around 200 and something students, not 300 and something. But we have more because we also do modular ATPLs. So our main focus is the integrated course, but we also provide the modular, because there are people that are not able to do the integrated. They are working. We are talking about doctors, nurses, military, police officers. We have all of those professions, and they are still working while they're taking their course, and they cannot commit with a full-time or even a night course, because they work with the very hard rosters. And that's why we have a lot of modular ATPL students as well. So this acquisition, I have to tell, we plan to get in 2023, so next year, a minimum of 300 students intake. That would be the minimum. And you know, Ponta do Açor capability, we will not leave Cascais and Bragança, where we already have our training bases. So we'll just add up 300 more. So we'll be able to train at least 300 to 400 new students per year. One of the good things in Ponta do Açor is, or one of the many good things, is that we have, as part of the deal, we have 3 plots there where we can, if needed, build new hangars and the new campus. So the growth potential is huge there. Of course, to fill that 100%, it's still a long way from now, but it's good to work, or for us, it's very good to work having on our mind that we are not constrained any logistics or air traffic constraints or whatever. So that's very good for us.
Yeah. And I think especially for everyone who's listening, you know, I know that Sevenair Academy has been one of the flight schools which has done relatively well in the pandemic. I know everyone was affected, but from what I know, and you know, from AFM.AERO tracking you throughout the pandemic, I know especially through your product offering, through your brand, through your pricing, through what you've just mentioned, you know, also having that flexibility in regards to modular, you have been able to continuously cater to aspiring pilots, and which has put you in a very good position throughout the pandemic and coming out of it. Are you going to take that? Are you going to take that same capability to kind of your new base, or is this new base, which I know historically has been really focused on kind of doing B2B contracts for pilot training? You know, what are your thoughts in terms of having these 3 different bases throughout Portugal, how you're going to tackle, and kind of what market segment you're going after?
Of course, the B2C market is it's always our basis, and that's where we want to grow. Our goal in terms of domestically, and when we speak domestically in Portugal, we are not just talking about Portuguese students. We're talking also about a lot of Portuguese guys coming from Portuguese-speaking African countries, Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde. Most of them come to Portugal to train. A lot of Brazilians as well. And those we don't consider foreign students because they are already living here, or they come and they travel as it was still part of a wider community. So in terms of this domestic market, our plan is to have at least 50% of it, and the rest 50% we would leave to the other operators, which are locally around 7. And of course, the idea is to grow in the B2B. Which we are not doing so at this stage. We have done some B2B contracts prior to the pandemic, but because of that, we stopped because we're talking about international contracts, and they were not allowed to fly here, so it was impossible to continue with those contracts. But that's also our idea. So we want to have a balance between B2C and B2B customers. I think with our capability and with these 3 training bases, we can cater them all. And as I mentioned, we have no constraints in terms of facilities growth if we need it. We can also expand to other available locations. And of course, we're talking about in the upcoming months till the end of the year, an integration. But after that, we are very open to expand also internationally, organically or by taking other acquisitions. We do believe the pandemic affected everybody. Of course, we were grounded 7 months in between 2020 and 2021 because we couldn't operate, and that affected a little bit our operation. But still, we managed to enroll a large number of students. We managed to fly. Still a large number of hours. We talk about 17,000 hours instead of 20,000, but still it was a decent number of hours. So we still believe in, so we did during the pandemic, and now we continue to believe that the market will recover. Aviation is an industry that will continue to grow, and we want to help it grow, and we want to grow along. So we don't have any difficulty in saying that we are able to invest more, as I mentioned, organically or even by acquisitions.
Well, this brings me to an interesting next question. What are the key kind of trends that you're seeing specifically in the flight training industry globally?
Well, the industry has been crazy, right, in the last few months. So it depends on the market or the region, probably. You see regions that are already suffering a lot, like the US or Australia, mostly the US, but they were already suffering before because they have a lot of rules that apply outside. So you can only go to the airline after 1,500 hours. The salary pyramid was not the most appealing. So compare with like a return on investment. Compare what we invest on a pilot course and what you will get in the first years. Compare with other professions was not the nicest one. So we see a lot of changes there. We see airlines tackling that problem, increasing the pay, trying to get people to look more into aviation. We see airlines that have an interesting growth plan, opening their own schools, which is a way of at least controlling part of the pipeline they need. Others are making supply contracts with schools like ours that can provide a large pipeline of pilots. So I see that the market will continue to grow. I see a lot of consolidation potential available. So I would say there are a number of companies, and I'm talking outside the US. So let's say the European market. I see a number of companies that are going into that, moving to that area. So growing organically, and I see moves in terms of consolidation. So I would see some news coming in the next year of school A buying school B, and so on. So I don't know. I say that probably we will see more MPL programs coming back again, because after the pandemic, with the pandemic, they were grounded, of course, but I see them coming back again, and probably stronger than before, because the airlines understood that would provide also highly qualified and large number of pilots for them. So it's going to be interesting, and the regions are not, as you know, they are not moving at the same rhythm, and they're not tackling the same problems. But we all see them moving quite a speedy, quite speedy, right?
Yeah. I think you make an interesting point about MPL programs coming back. I tend to agree with you, except for the fact that currently, because simulator training centers across the world for specific simulator types are so fully booked, because there's so much retraining going on, type rating again, recurrencies, refreshments, all of that currently there is still more flight training capacity than there is simulator capacity. So I wonder if this is something that airlines are looking into. But I absolutely agree with you. From everything that we track at AFM, when we look back before the pandemic, 2019 was a record year for B2B contracts, kind of airline cadet programs. We expect 2023 or 2024 to be an even bigger year, where airlines really are, and we're seeing this already pretty much everywhere that we look around the globe, where airlines have already announced either their intention or their restart of cadet programs. And we're only 8 months out of the latest wave, and we're just going to see that scale up quite drastically. The one thing though which we are quite closely tracking is the challenges so that the industry is facing, because there's all this increase in terms of demand by the airlines for pilots again, but then in order for flight schools to meet that demand, right, they're battling different things like significant increase in fuel cost, supply chain disruptions in terms of spare parts for aircraft, training aircraft manufacturers having ramped down productions, all of these different things. So can you just maybe share with everyone kind of your view of what the challenges are that you see the industry will be tackling from now moving forward?
Yeah, all that you mentioned, we suffered. So we had a lot of, especially this year in the first quarter, a lot of issues with the supply of parts, crazy. We are still, it's a little bit better, it's true, but we are still seeing that the delays are still there, a little bit less. But we were talking about, there were parts that we ordered and they said, okay, 180 days, parts that usually were available in a couple of weeks. And so far we are seeing an improvement, but still there is some things to be done in that area. And another point that made us go into this bid to buy all three areas was exactly the lack of available aircraft. So we had a number of constraints on our operation, and we wanted to grow and we were not able to grow. So not only the airspace being congested with a lot of commercial flights, but the lack of aircrafts to buy. Okay, we could buy second-hand old aircrafts, but that's not our strategy. We want to have glass cockpit aircrafts, trying to provide our students the best training possible and the highest technology available. And if you go into one of the main suppliers, they would tell you, okay, in late 2024 or 25, I can supply you an aircraft. So that was another issue. Simulators, as you mentioned, the same. The few high-quality simulator manufacturers have also a huge pipeline of deliveries to be done. So those were all challenges that we faced, and that's and most of them a part of the logistic part supply we managed to tackle with this acquisition, and I think the other flight schools are suffering the same. we don't control that, right? Okay, we managed what we could control, we solved it with this, right? Okay, so now we have the capability. In terms of maintenance, which is a big part of our operation, because if the aircrafts are not maintained on of course, a good quality service, but especially in due time, that will affect your operation, and that we cannot control. If the worldwide logistics doesn't improve, it's a big issue for everybody, because you will have aircrafts grounded for a non, you don't know for how long. That's a big problem. So I think we all are suffering with that, and we can control that part. We have just to wait and see how the suppliers manage to get solutions. The other parts, like for example, fuel supply and all of that, we are taking care ourselves and trying to get direct sources from refineries and trying to bypass all those logistics issues. But it's in some ways it's not easy. In some.
But I feel like, these ever increasing challenges, or these increasing challenges that, especially, coming out of the pandemic, I know a lot of flight school owners and flight school management teams were like, okay, we've survived the pandemic. Yes, great. Now is the time when, things are going to be great again. We're going to, we're going to perform better financially. Maybe we're going to pay off, some of the debt that we've accumulated, during the pandemic. But then they were, then flight schools were hit with so many different things. One of the key ones, what I want to get your opinion on, is really the cost inflation, because what we're seeing is that the cost to deliver flight training is going up, but we haven't yet seen a lot of flight schools implement price increases. And I feel like that is because, for example, if I'm flight school A, you're flight school B, and I increase my pricing, then I'm worried that, aspiring pilots are worried that, will choose you because they can save, 5,000 euros, which I completely understand. Like, pilot training is very expensive, but usually what we're seeing is, especially schools which are offering like deals or, lower pricing, might be ones which are in even worse financial shape, and where it's very risky to join them. So how do you see the industry developing, and how are you tackling that problem?
Yeah, I agree with you. If you look into the other schools, you see some of them it's like an auction. They just raise and then decrease the prices, and then raise again and then decrease again. And usually they do that because, of course, I'm not pointing fingers, but it's a desperate measure. When you start just lowering your prices purely to get students, it's because you don't have the other ways to attracting them. And you should focus on the quality of the training, the quality of the equipment, the quality of manuals, everything. That's where the difference is. The quality of the training you produce, not the low price. You cannot maintain an activity like ours, which is high investment, and you have to have a lot of money to. You cannot keep it and have good standards of maintenance and have good aircraft and all of that with low prices. We never went into that war. We saw in the pandemic in 2020 some schools that were offering higher prices than ours, just dropping by 20,000 euros, which was because they had no students. And I have to tell you, we have the same pricing since 2018. Okay. Of course, we had no inflation until now, so we managed to do it. But honestly, we are not considering increasing the pricing, basically because we are cutting in other things. We are cutting on the fuel price, because in this new facility in Ponte de Sora, we will have our own fuel, and that makes a lot of difference in the final price. Because in Cascais or in Bragança, we have to buy fuel from the local supplier, which adds up a big margin, we all know. And there we will buy directly from the refinery. And of course, high quality, we will buy where our suppliers usually buy. So we can cut at least 40 to 50% the price of fuel. And that makes a huge difference. The fact that we have our own maintenance, and it's a large maintenance company, we have more than 60 technicians working for us. That also allow us to control the costs, the quality, and also the cost of maintenance. And those parts, they are both the major parts that impact the pricing, fuel and maintenance costs. So having that controlled, for now at least, unless next year things get even more crazy than today, we are not expecting that, but we don't know. We are not planning to either increase or decrease. We will maintain what we have right now. Doesn't mean that we cannot introduce a new program, different one, with different pricing. But for the current integrated or the modular programs, we are not expecting to have any changes. And just to wrap up, as you mentioned, those schools that if you see them just moving the prices and not offering anything different, it's because probably they are in dire straits, and I wouldn't go there. And we see some examples, or we saw even today, but we saw some examples like that recently. And people say, yeah, I'm going to save 5,000 euros, and then in the middle of training, they just close. And in the end, you lose more. So it's not easy. I know for the people, it's an high investment. It's true. But pilot wannabes should look into other things. When they are trying to find a school, they should look into how many years is the school in the market, how many instructors, how many aircraft, the type of aircrafts, if they have any agreement with airlines, a number of things that are just not purely the cost of the course. Because it makes a difference.
So to kind of wrap up on this specific point, what would you say is the biggest challenge that you're either currently tackling or that you foresee for 2023 in terms of operating as a flight school? What's your biggest worry?
Well, my everyday worry is to get students. So I need students to pay for all of this investment in infrastructure and pay salaries. But honestly, without jokes, our main concern for the near future is the boom that the industry is having will eventually replicate what happened in 2018, 2019, which was the airlines coming to the schools and taking all of the instructors out. And if we don't have instructors, we cannot produce new pilots. So this is a circle that we need to pass. And that's I would say, the most challenging thing that we have on our minds for the next couple of years. Because if the industry continues to grow as it is, and if we cannot produce enough pilots as they need, they will, of course, take most of the instructors. And that's, I think everybody is, or at least should be concerned with that.
Yeah, I feel
also the airline should be concerned with that, because if they take the instructors, they will cut their own pipeline. But I know they only see in short term; they don't see in medium to long term. There is ways to solve this, and that's with it's to have, as we were talking before, to have more agreements between airlines and schools. If you have more proximity in decisions and in the training between the schools and the airlines, this is something that could be solved and not a problem for neither of them.
I absolutely agree with you. I am completely amazed how quickly it has become a worry for flight schools. Like from outside, we're not a flight school, right? Like we're a market intelligence company, but we've been forecasting this for over a year. But even for us, the speed at which this has become a worry or a potential problem for flight schools has really amazed us. And I also really feel that it's starting to be on everyone's mind since the last 2 months. But there's not that much public discussion about it. But it is definitely going to make or break schools next year, kind of when suddenly airlines come and, for example, take away half of their flight instructors. And right, what are the students going to do then? So looking at kind of your crystal ball final question, and I think you alluded to it already earlier in the interview, where do you see this industry? How do you see this industry developing over the next 2 years? Kind of what are the key kind of trends that you see? Do you believe, I think what you've mentioned earlier, the big guys are going to get much, much bigger? What are your thoughts on that?
I think so. I think there is a number of companies there that will grow some way by acquisitions, another way by taking positions of schools that will not manage to keep up with the inflation and all those issues that we discussed. We know that the market of flight schools is very spread. Most of them, we're talking about very small operations, 5 to 10 aircrafts. Even 10 aircrafts, I don't see probably most of them have. So those schools will probably be in more difficulties to keep up if we have a huge inflation, if there is a recession. I don't know. And the big ones, the ones that have managed to jump from small operators to an organized company are in better way to grow. And I also see that being good to the market. The market needs large operators in terms of training, because even for the airlines to be able to discuss with the flight schools, they need somebody that can talk the same language and that can understand their needs and their large pipeline they need and offer them solutions. And most of the market cannot do that, because even as with this acquisition, you see 50 aircraft, okay, we will be probably on top in Europe. I'm not sure, but if we are not the largest, we'll be one of the largest for sure. That's nothing. The largest schools in the world have almost 10 times this. Yeah. Talk about the US, of course, and China. So I see there is a huge potential in the European market to grow and to integrate and consolidate companies. And I see that, so my forecast is that in the next couple of years, we will see a movement. We would like to be part of that movement. So let's see if we manage to do it or not. I hope so.
Alexandre, I believe Sevenair Academy will definitely be one of these players. So, you and I, we know each other since quite some time. I know Sevenair Academy. Before the pandemic, there were only 4 real players, which were training more than 1,000 pilots per year. Right, you had the really big guys, CAE, L3, ATP, Kafuk in China, and then of course you have the US colleges, which are also training very large numbers. Then between 500 to 1,000 students, you only had less than 5 schools as well, less than 5 players. Then you had kind of the segment of the industry as well, which was 200 to 500. Which I know you were operating in, but then when we look globally, there's also not such a large number of players operating in that space. What I see, what is going to happen now is we're going to see a lot of the players which are operating in the 500 to 1,000 mark going to all go across 1,000, train 1,000 to 2,000, and then players such as yourself really go into the training, 400, 500 plus every single year. So I am looking forward to seeing more Sevenair Academy announcements over the next few years. I also recommend for anyone who is interested to learn more about Sevenair Group or Sevenair Academy to check out their website, www.sevenair.com, or connect with Alexandre on LinkedIn. Alexandre Alves, he is very well known on LinkedIn. He is very active. It's a great place to reach him. Is there anything else you would like to share or anything you would like to add?
Well, at this stage, honestly, just to share that we believe in the market, we believe in the industry that we are, and for everybody that wants to be a pilot, it's also even though it's a huge investment, I think it pays off. So don't be scared with all this bad news, either from the pandemic or the war. This is a thriving industry. It has survived and raised even stronger after all the crisis that it's been through. And for all the other companies operating in this area, you should believe in and you should offer good quality. And I think we have good examples in the market. We also follow those examples. So we should also talk more with each other and see and have a more standardized offer to the airlines, because that's something also that you see a huge difference in the quality of training from school A to school B, even they are next door. And so there should be more discussions between the industry. We should be more, we should have a vision of a more integrated vision than just a competitor vision. Yeah. And so we are here to do that. We are open to business. We are open to anybody that wants to come and join. We are open to any airline or even flight school that wants to partner with us. And that's it. I'm happy to connect with anybody. I try to be active, as you mentioned. It's not easy. I lack the time sometimes. And if anybody wants to visit Portugal, I would be very happy to welcome them here. And you are most welcome to visit whenever you want, Max, as you know.
Yes. For really anyone listening, I can really highly recommend you to take Alexandre up on this offer and to go and visit their new facilities in Ponta del Açor. It's approximately, please correct me if I'm wrong, Alexandre, 1.5 hours drive from Lisbon. Is that correct?
Yeah.
It is most probably
200 kilometers. So yeah, 1.5 hour drive.
Yeah, it is most probably one of the nicest flight school facilities that I've come across. Really wonderful hangars, wonderful academy. As I said, 4 to 5 star student accommodation, and plenty of space, both airspace and space in the city for Sevenair to train a large amount of students, be that B2C or be that any airline operator looking to go there. So I highly recommend everyone to take Alexandre up on this offer and and let him host you.
Thanks.
Perfect, Alexandre. I wish you a good afternoon, and once again, congratulations on your acquisition. And I look forward to seeing and wish you all the success with it.
Thank you very much. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.